You're listening to English with Monty. Today is 8-Minute English,
talking about the past perfect continuous.
Hello there, welcome to 8-Minute English. I've got Gideon on the show. How are you doing, Gideon?
I'm doing fine.
Great.
Even better now that I'm talking to you.
Likewise for me. I love speaking to you. We've only got 8 minutes for this one. Let's get into it. It's going to be about past perfect continuous. And I thought I would look at this one partly because the episode on past perfect got quite a few listens. So I thought, why not? Let's have a look at the past perfect continuous. Why is it different? Why do we use it? Do we need to use it?
Right.
Maybe let's start off. Why do we use past perfect simple and why do we use past perfect continuous? What's the difference?
All the past perfects, there are two past tenses. There's three times if you include now. Okay, there's now, there's the past, and there's another time before that. So three times. In its most basic form, I could say in the past simple, I didn't know that you had already visited Paris. You came last week and you told me that you hadn't visited Paris. Okay, so you got now, you got last week, you got the time before last week, an indefinite time when you visited Paris. So you told me that you had visited Paris before. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the basic. And then you have the past perfect continuous, which you use when you're describing an action that was happening over a period of time. Because when you come to Paris, there's one action. But if it's happening during a period of time, okay, and then that is interrupted by something, that's when you use it. So better that I give you an example, okay? I'm going to steal this example because I think it's on the BBC websites. A shout out to them, but they've just given some good examples. I had been living in London for 2 years when I met Alice, okay?
It's a good example. I like that one.
Okay, so now is now. And then many years ago, I met Alice. So that's the second time. But before that, I was already living in Paris. So I had been living in Paris. London. I had been living in London for 2 years when I met Alice. Okay. I'd been waiting for 2 hours before the bus arrived. So again, there are three times. There's now. There's me talking about what happened to me before, waiting for the bus, then the bus arriving.
I suppose it's describing an action though, isn't it? That's why we're using the continuous form. It's obviously happening over a period of time up to another point in time, isn't it? Like as in another past event.
Yeah, often you use it to talk about an interruption and use it at the past simple. So again, I'm talking about something that happened to me in the past and an interruption of that action. So yesterday, I had been sitting doing some work when John called. Okay, so that continuous action, I'd been working, I've been sitting, I've been reading, and then the interruption to that action, John called. It's in the past simple.
We'd always use it with the past simple though, wouldn't we? That creates the interruption, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I suppose, does it touch upon this idea of having a time conjunction as well? You mentioned maybe I'd been waiting for the bus for 2 hours before it arrived. Using before, or we could use after as well, couldn't we?
Yeah, there is usually a time indication.
Often I get this question, why don't we use the past continuous? Why do we use the past perfect continuous?
That's a good question. I think that people would probably understand from the context, but if you want to be precise, sometimes you get it wrong. I think there's a good example. Let me think about this, John. For example, I was exercising at the gym when John arrived. It means just that moment you were exercising. But if I say I had been exercising at the gym when John arrived, it means for a period of time prior to John's arrival, I had been doing exercise. Maybe a better example, I was drinking a Coke when John arrived again. I'll use the same example. That means in that moment I was drinking. So it doesn't say what you did before John arrived. But if I say I had been drinking a Coke, well, that sounds a bit strange, maybe, but it sounds a bit strange. But if it's something which takes time, like working, I had been working for many hours when John arrived. So it's clear that you're talking about a period of time before the action, the interruption of the action, rather than at the moment of the interruption.
That's it, isn't it? It's about focusing on the period of time. I suppose if you're just saying, I was sleeping when you arrived, it's just talking about the action at that moment, isn't it?
Exactly. You'll probably say I had been sleeping, but was sleeping. You're talking about the precise moment, and what happened before that is not relevant.
Yeah. There's a couple of examples here which are very interesting. The difference between the past perfect continuous and the past perfect simple. So Patrick felt refreshed because he had slept all afternoon. Patrick felt refreshed because he had been sleeping all day. So what's the difference there?
So the first one, Patrick felt refreshed because he had slept. It's about the completed action, okay? And Patrick felt refreshed because he had been sleeping is about the continuation. It's an explanation of what had been happening. Is that right?
That's right. I suppose he could continue to sleep, couldn't he? Because the first one with the simple form is more about, okay, this is a completed idea. It's not going to continue. Whereas I guess there's a suggestion in the second one that it might continue as well.
Yeah. When I came round to say Patrick, he was refreshed because he had slept all afternoon, but he was already awake when I went round. And Patrick felt refreshed because he'd been sleeping afternoon. So I interrupted him, but he was okay because he'd been sleeping. It's a very subtle difference, isn't it?
Yeah, there's not a huge difference, is there,
Yeah.
really? That's why it can be a little bit confusing. I suppose that idea, isn't it, about the completion, isn't it? Do you think about the next example? The children had been playing in the park for hours when they suddenly realized that it was dark. In this case, it is about the idea of it not being finished, isn't it? The action is incomplete in some way.
Yeah, exactly. You couldn't say they had played because it's still going on.
Yeah.
And they realize it interrupts their action.
I mean, it's just very simple, but obviously the negative form would be hadn't. So you obviously put that on the auxiliary. Of course, you can make a contraction. So you could say he'd instead of he had. So he'd been having trouble sleeping instead of he had. You could use that as well.
Yeah.
So it's very similar, obviously, to other forms when we use a contraction, just makes it a bit more, I suppose, spoken English, doesn't it? To some extent, it's not so much emphasis.
Yeah.
And then obviously, of course, with the question, you start off with the auxiliary. So had you been drinking when you fell off your bike? So again, it's just focusing on the auxiliary is important as the main structure of this particular grammar point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Was there anything else you wanted to add?
I don't think so, John.
I think that's it. We must have done 8
Yeah,
minutes.
I think we've done it.
Thanks for joining me, Gideon.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
And you've been listening to 8 Minute English.